The RSV has maintained the old translation with regard to this beast that ascends from the bottomless pit. The reason why this wording is there is that the Greek means a place without a bottom. It gives us the word abyss. A in Greek is negative, and the other root is just a bottom, a chasm, a depth, and here no end. At the end of this same reading from the Apocalypse, we have the other scale of things. These two prophets being caught up to heaven. They are in some way taken up into majesty and glory. And in the sight of their foes, they went up to heaven in a cloud. So we have the two poles. Traditionally, looking down or going down means going to bad company. Oh, Nick. Hell didn't exist until the fall of the angels in prehistory. The other is where our Blessed Lady has gone. And in this month of November, it's as well to be focused on that part of geography, beyond geography. As we enter heaven, said Archbishop Fulton Sheen, we will see them, so many of them, coming toward us and thanking us. We will ask who they are, and they will say, a poor soul you prayed for in purgatory. Priests who have had a lot to do with people who are dying have similar stories, as do nurses in nursing homes and the like. That things happen on that frontier edge, that grey area between time and eternity. After even long moments in a comatose state, suddenly eyes open and the person seems to be looking with eyes that are seeing at some presence. And usually it's not at the family who might be there, but beyond them. It might be the family gone before them, coming to meet them. It might be the Lord, our Blessed Lady, an angel. We don't quite know until it's our turn to go through the same door. But there the frontier is very thin. It's a kind of no man's land. And Maria Silma, that victim soul for the Holy Souls in Purgatory, maintained that there was precisely a tiny moment. She maintained that it was between 2 and 3 minutes at the most, where there was some kind of awareness coming into the soul before it was irreversible. The soul can be made aware at that point of cosmic time of what's ahead, and might perhaps be given one last chance of lucidity. Because unfortunately at the end of life lucidity is lost, as you know, quite often. But there the soul doesn't depend anymore on the brain for its functioning, and it can be exposed to head-on light. So we hope that there's some kind of part we don't know about, otherwise we're all in trouble. But the bottom line is this: we all have to be aware that when it comes to the mappa mundi of eternity, this dot that we call time and life is but a fraction, because it's before infinity. And whatever the length of time before infinity, it's tiny, 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 and ever shrinking as the soul goes on into that whole realm of the beyond, where precisely Our Lady has gone. We started well. Now, the iconography of this day, I think you probably would have seen it on your travels through life, that of a little damsel of about 3, going up these big steps of the temple, her arms out, just looking straight ahead and up to the high priest who represents God for her, and not looking back at St. Joachim and St. Anna and the comfort zone of the family nest. At this very moment, a friend of mine, Sister Consolata, is making her solemn vows in a community of perpetual adoration in Holland, and the preparation, I know, is quite intense there. You have all the pistons taken out, and it's very impressive actually, these nuns who give themselves on the ground to this notion, especially in their case, of victimhood. Because every day actually they put themselves on the ground, they prostrate themselves before the altar, before the Blessed Sacrament exposed, which is day and night, and they renew their act of offering of themselves totally, aware that their vocation is to be on the cross and to make up for, now what? I want to look into that for a second, because it does impinge on what you are about to do also. Give yourself to Our Blessed Lady. It's one specific area where we need to be aware. It's the fact that our Blessed Lord is badly wounded. I happened to come across it out of the blue, and I wasn't aware of it. You will have heard of this now Beatus Carlo Acutis. Well, this bit I wasn't aware of, that immediately after his death, which was in 2006, October the 12th, something happened. It was just a few days later, and it was probably a sign from heaven linked with his death, because he was a saint for our time, a saint for the youth, and a saint for the daughters of the Blessed Sacrament. His whole life was given to honouring the Lord in the Blessed Sacrament, and he was given skills which even experts don't have, of knowing how a computer can be made to behave if you get to do certain things which they couldn't do that normally. He just had these gifts from heaven, and he was able to put all these things together on Eucharistic miracles throughout history. So this happened immediately after his death, a Eucharistic miracle. It was just a few days later. The date actually was the 21st, so 12 reversed. Now it wasn't in Italy at all, it was in Mexico, Tisla. Now, there's a picture here, you can see, I think even from where you are, and what happened was this. Now notice this bit first of all. In this celebration of the Holy Eucharist there was a good religious sister, a nun, who was giving the Blessed Sacrament. Now that point, you see, is something which perhaps is not without significance given what's going to follow. I just quote from this article. The religious sister was giving out communion at communion time. Her eyes filled with tears. This immediately attracted the celebrant's attention. Now there's a point here, the celebrant is present. One asks therefore why this sister was giving Holy Communion. I won't go into that for the moment. The host she had taken to give communion to a parishioner had begun to ooze a reddish substance. Okay, we're not able to conceal it. 2 studies conducted by eminent forensic experts with different methods have shown that the substance originates from the interior, excluding the hypothesis that someone could have applied it from the outside. This was a fascinating discovery. This red substance that oozed from the consecrated host had the properties of a wound. Now, bear that in mind. I'll come back to it in a moment. The blood comes from inside the body and spreads out. The tissue corresponds to heart muscle. Now that's consistent with other Eucharistic miracles, in fact every single one. Lanciano, the one that happened actually and was shown to Archbishop Bergoglio, the present Pope, in Argentina. That also was analysed, and indeed the analysis was given without indicating where it came from to a scientist who said it wasn't possible. This is actually alive and it just couldn't happen. And when the forensic studies were communicated to the experts still living who had done the same work on Lanciano in the 70s, he exploded like this, "È lo stesso uomo!" It's the same man. And he knew what he was talking about because he'd come across this puzzling element of the DNA, that there was missing chromosome formation which should be there if there was a normal birth. In other words, there was only the DNA of the Blessed Virgin there. So it was indicating precisely that it was that of the Son of God, where St. Joseph was not involved in the birth. And it's always been the case in anything which has come out of these Eucharistic miracles that have been analysed. Same blood group in each case, AB, which is common in the Middle East but not here. Also, the Shroud of Turin has now been looked at in this way, and they found exactly the same things coming there. No study exists that can maintain cardiac tissue alive in this situation. Normally after 48 hours, the tissue dies, while here 3 months had passed before the result could be obtained. And this is truly inexplicable science. So the bishop, who at the time was Alejo Zavala Castro of that diocese in Mexico, requested this scientific investigation through Dr. Ricardo Castañón Gómez. And so we have the statement. The reddish substance analysed corresponds to blood in which there is hemoglobin and DNA of human origin. 2 studies by eminent forensic experts using different methodologies have shown that the substance originates from within, excluding the hypothesis that someone could have placed it from outside. The blood type is AB, similar to that found in the Lanciano host and the Shroud of Turin. A microscopic magnification and penetration analysis reveals that the upper part of the blood has coagulated since October 2006. In addition, the underlying inner layers reveal, in February 2010, the presence of fresh blood. The event has no material explanation. Now the question is, why did that take place? The devotion of Carlo Acutis is known from earliest childhood. It's quite amazing with regard to the Blessed Sacrament. And he would have been aware of what causes a wound in the heart of our Saviour, a fresh wound, a fresh thorn. And I think you would also have some idea because you're all girls of prayer. And unfortunately, it's not decreasing with the pandemic, but people seem to be finding ingenious new ways of not doing the will of God. I go around sometimes and I'm quite surprised to hear what's going on. Open your eyes and you'll also see. Now, with regard to This particular one, as I said in the beginning, it happened when this religious sister was giving out Holy Communion, when actually the celebrant was there. I have no idea how many were present in church, but if it's anything like the average, probably there was no need for her to be doing that. I don't go into that, I wasn't there. But I've been at many where I was there, and I've had experiences where it's quite obvious that there was no need for anything else but the norm of consecrating hands, handling the Lord. And there's actually a logic in that, because there's a thrust in the movement. The bread of life comes from heaven. The necessary channel is the priest. The Lord descends into his hands, and for 2,000 years there was no question of any but his hands distributing the host. Even the deacon didn't for 2,000 years. His role from the earliest times, as you will see from any icon, is that of the chalice. The deacon was minister of the chalice. And the host, unlike the chalice, is the body of Christ directly. And the whole armour, the panoply of protection of the Most High, we have just stripped away. And it's happening more and more in this pandemic. And one of the first things that we need to ask ourselves is, can we please the Lord by disobeying him in the will expressed by the church? No matter how widespread it is, the will of God is expressed by the church. And the church is clear. There was a strong, very strong directive given in the end of the 90s. It was 1997, 98, that period there, when the Vatican clamped down. And it was a very rare occurrence, because about 20 centres of the whole Vatican were involved. Different congregations got together to publish a common document, the Interdicasterial Declaration on the participation of lay people in the ministry of priests. And it was specifically for this issue that all normalization of this participation in certain parts of the priest ministry had to be brought down to what it was meant to be, exceptional and only when necessary. And clear indications have been given. You will still see it properly applied in certain countries. Czech Republic, Hungary, Poland. In Poland they talk about at least 300 present to start even thinking about help from a non-priest at the altar. But we, with under 10 people, might find that somebody traipses up and wants to have the right to exercise this extraordinary ministry. It also gratifies the person, doesn't it? But does it find pleasure with the Lord's heart? The Eucharist is not a place to appear and perform and be gratified. It's a place to disappear before the Lord Most High. And if we do something else, well, we're causing that jab in the Sacred Heart which led this host to bleed. These words, given to humanity by the Sacred Heart at Parimonial, have lost none of their validity. Behold, this heart, which has so loved men, that it has spared nothing, even to the point of spending itself and being consumed to prove its love to them. And in return, I receive from most men only ingratitude because of their irreverence and sacrileges, and the coldness and scorn they have for me in this sacrament of love. But what offends me most is that hearts consecrated to me act in this way. Do thou at least console me by supplying for their ingratitude as far as thou art